Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Insider, brought to you, as ever, by Vanishing Inc. My guest today needs no introduction, so I'm not even going to give him one. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Craig Petty. Craig, how are you this morning?
Hey! I can't believe I finally made it onto the Vanishing Inc. podcast. Honestly, I could die happy tomorrow knowing that my greatest achievement has finally been realised. This is the moment right now.
I'm glad to have made that happen for you.
From this point, it's all downhill. How's it going? You all right?
Good. Thank you very much for asking. Thank you for being English, so I can do this at a sensible time rather than having to wait up late for one of those pesky Americans.
I feel you.
What's your magic origin story? You've got 23 seconds.
Red coat. Hated magic. Didn't enjoy doing it at all, but loved performing. Went to Butlins. I was a red coat at Butlins. Met a magician who was touring there, and he was back every week, and I fell in love. Not with the magician, with magic, and spent all of the money that I made, which was very little because I was a red coat, buying crap from the Skegness markets and the magic shop in Skegness, and ended up just becoming obsessed with it, and then blagged my way into Camp America, working at a summer camp in America under Brad Henderson. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Brad realised literally within 5 seconds of me walking through the door that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. There were like 5 magic counsellors, including me and him, and we were meeting for the first time before the camp started, and everyone was like, do a trick, do a trick, do a trick. And the only trick I knew was dynamic coins. That was the only, I had that. And they were like, can you do a card trick? And I was like, no, not really. And so he just realised he had a mistake on his hands, but he didn't know what to do with me, and he couldn't send me away because I was there for the summer. So he made the best of a bad situation. Nobody wanted to do coin magic. So he literally locked me for 2 weeks in a room with expert coin magic, super magic by Paul Harris, Bobo's modern coin magic. And he said, you got 2 weeks, you're doing all of the coin classes. And it was like literally a summer of, I was learning it along with the kids. I didn't have a clue. And I blagged my way through it. Brad became a friend. I still apologise every time I see him to this day for messing him around and screwing him over, which I absolutely did. But that's why I'm known as a coin guy, because most people, they start learning card magic because it's instant gratification. You can learn a self-working card trick.
It's easier. Yeah.
Exactly. But with me, all I ever learned was coin magic for the first 6 months of my life. I didn't even touch a pack. I wasn't even allowed to touch a pack of cards. So I was like really great at all of the David Roth routines, and I could do like all of his stuff, but I didn't even know how to hold a deck of cards properly. So it was a very interesting way into magic. And then I came back and went through uni and worked in a magic shop demoing magic, and the rest is history. So that's kind of the short abridged version.
Oh, good. Thank you, Brad, and your marvellous beard for giving us Craig Petty. We met very briefly at the session last year, well, in the summer, and you were charming and kind and polite. So where does this ranty bad boy of magic persona come from, and how deliberate was that?
Oh my God! So that's a really good question. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes when I was on the Wizard Product Review with David Penn. And I think David would agree with me here. When I was on the Wizard Product Review, we used to do stuff just to piss people off. Like we used to do stupid stuff every single week because we were trying to get ratings, and because I wanted to be famous. I didn't know any better back then. I wanted to be famous in magic. So I did stupid stuff that I look back and I kind of regret. So we did skits like, I remember doing a skit with David Penn on the Wizard Product Review where I pretended to be Dan Harlan, and I was running out of World Magic Shop with a cash register with my pants around my ankles and stuff, and I dressed as in an Elvis suit and pretended I was Devon Knight, and just stuff like this, and it was just getting more and more out of control, and it got to a point where I had to leave the community for a variety of different reasons, and I got to a point where I was almost public enemy number one. Nobody liked me.
Including death threats.
There was tons of death threats, And there was a lot of things that happened back to back. There was the there was the team building thing. There was the Magic Circle thing. There was me telling the president of the Magic Circle where to go. There was what else was there? There was
Red.
Red, obviously. There was Wayne Dobson and Jeff McBride. That was a big thing back then, and all of that. All of that. I just made mistake on mistake on mistake, and I had to step back. And I left the community completely, and just focused on building a business, and that was successful and did great. And then just before the pandemic, I came back into the community, and I went to Blackpool for the first time in like 6 or 7 years because I got invited to do the bear pit, and I said yes. And then COVID hit, and my son was really getting into magic. He'd always been into magic, but he was really getting into magic. And he was getting frustrated because he had no one to show it to because we were stuck in the house together. So I said to him, Rye, why don't we do a review show together? I used to do a review show with this guy called David. We'll do a review show together. And that's when Magic TV started. It was literally just to give Ryland something to do because he was just bored at home, and he just hated it. So that's where the review show came from. And off the back of that, Magic TV really took off, and I was like, right, okay, well, I can do a video on this, and I can do a video on that, and I'll do interviews with this people because everyone's stuck at home, so I can reach out to them on Zoom, and I can do interviews with them. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do rants as well, because back in the day when I was on the Wizard Product Review, that's what people like. They like me being angry and shouty. And I had lots of things in the community that I thought and I perceived weren't right. And I thought the best way to do it is to do a rant. And I'll be honest with you, I don't do the rants anymore. I did very, very rarely. I still have. They disappeared for a while. I'll be honest. I'll tell you exactly why they disappeared. And I've never said this anywhere, but I'll tell you why they disappeared. But I started doing the rants, and they were the most popular videos. And I was like, oh, people love this. And I was getting more and more over the top with it. And it got to a point where I was trying to find stuff to argue about and shout about. And half of the rants that I filmed, I wasn't even angry about it. I was having to fake it. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to call this a day. And at the same time, I had so many messages from kids and parents who watched the channel. And they were like, oh, I love your reviews. I love Ryland's thing. And I'm like, this is just completely the opposite. I've got a video that goes up on a Wednesday with me sitting next to a 7-year-old doing reviews on magic tricks, and he's super cute. And I've got a video on a Friday where I'm screaming and effing and blinding and, and I'm like, this isn't right. And then at the same time, Ryland got really immersed into Britain's Got Talent. And he was like going on to Britain's Got Talent. And I kind of thought to myself, okay, so these rant videos could really be taken out of context, because you know what the press are like. I knew he was going to do well on BGT. They're always looking for a story. All it takes is for them to find one of my rant videos, cut a 10-second segment out of it, and without any context at all, and say, this is Ryland, the super cute magician on Britain's Got Talent. This is his dad. Tattoo, shaved head, effing and blinding. And when I kind of put all of that together, I was like, okay, I need to stop this. So we deleted all of the rants off YouTube, and I stopped doing them. And that was the end of it. And then when Ryland finished BGT, and that whole journey ended, there was still stuff I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to do it in a different way. So we brought the rants back, but in a different way. They're not me screaming and shouting and effing and blinding now. They're not me just sitting there for 20 minutes swearing at a computer screen. Instead, it's my perspective on something. It's kind of more of an unpopular opinion, or an opinion. Like, so recently I did one on Mr. Blonde and the peak device and everything, my opinion on stuff like that, or exposure in magic, or whatever it may be. So that's a very long-winded way to explain what happened. But basically, I want the channel to be something that's accessible by everybody.
Right.
By kids, by adults, by everyone. And I don't want to shy away from my opinion, because I think the only way that the magic community improves is by tackling this stuff head on. And, so I like to give my opinion on things. I think that's a big part of the channel, but I want to do it in the right way. And it doesn't always happen.
There's a bit, the magic community is a bit Emperor's New Clothes sometimes with certain releases. So, and I do think there's room for somebody to challenge the status quo, but I understand why you've toned it down. slightly, should we say?
Although I do a podcast with a guy called Lloyd Barnes, who I'm sure you know, and I do
Heard of him? Yeah.
yeah, this guy Lloyd, and we do this magic podcast. And if people want the over the top Beavis and Butthead style approach to magic, then they just have to listen to that podcast because it's just ridiculous and over the top. And we keep it.
And where can they find that, Craig?
Oh, just the magic podcast. It's everywhere.
Where can they find that?
Don't listen to it if you're easily offended. It's full of Welsh jokes and jokes about various different people in the magic community. You know, lots of them, including some of the Alakazam, Vanishing Ink, Penguin, everybody. We just take a pop at everybody, and it's all taken very tongue in cheek. So there's that aspect of it as well. But you know, I just
you can vent your pressure that way.
I can vent on that podcast, and people can't see me; they can just hear me, so it's fine.
What did drag you back in after your wilderness years? You said you went to Blackpool, but what made you what changed your mind? What had happened that thought?
There were two things. The first thing is you have to understand the main reason I left. Yes, I was getting death threats, and there was this and that and the other, and I felt like I wasn't welcome in the magic community anymore. But that wasn't the catalyst. That wasn't the main reason. The main reason was I needed to actually start making money because my wife, and I'll be completely honest with you, my wife had a very good job. She was a deputy head of a primary school. So she was very, 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 very successful, and she made a lot of money, more than enough money for the both of us. And I spent all of my time filming content for World Magic Shop and messing around and so on and so forth. And I didn't focus on my business as a performer.
Right.
So I was constantly going out and, well, first of all, I was getting gigs, but very few and far between. And the ones I was getting really frustrated. Why am I going out and getting £100 for a gig when I know there's people out there going and getting £7, £8, £9, £1,000 a gig? Why is that? And it was because I wasn't putting any effort onto the business. You know, it's that old joke, isn't it? What's the difference between a magician and a savings bond? Well, eventually a savings bond will mature and make money. You know, it's that whole thing. So I was just basically kept by my wife. And then at around about the same time, I was considering leaving the community, and I was like, I don't want to though, and blah 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 blah. My wife came home and she said, I've got good news and bad news. And I was like, oh, okay. Right, what's the good news? And she went, I'm pregnant. Oh, that's amazing. We've been trying for a while. I was like, that's awesome. You know, she's pregnant with who would eventually become Ryland. And I was like, that's great. And she said, yeah, now here's the bad news. You need to sort yourself out because I'm not going to go back to school full time. I need to be a mom. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. And you either make magic work and you make it pay, or you find something that will. But the days of this are over, and everybody at
that's a good incentive.
Yeah, well, everybody in their life has this light bulb moment, that moment where almost like a switch is flipped in your head, and that's what I had at that point. And I realized that if I wanted to care for my family and my unborn child, who would eventually become children, if I wanted to do that, I couldn't sit around spending 3 days filming stuff for World Magic Shop anymore. I knew I needed to focus on my business, and that's what I did. So I set up, Slightly Unusual, then Non-Stop Kids, and focused on the business, and they became very, very successful. And everybody knows what I do now in terms of those businesses. I'm sitting in an office with like 10 members of staff. Things are going really well, so. The reason I'm telling you this is because the first thing that happened is I was getting a little bit bored in the office. And what I mean by that is, as well as me, that if you want to be successful in business, you can either work on the business or in the business. And if you work in the business, you've got no time to work on the business. And if you're going to be entrepreneurial, you have to spend time working on the business. Well, what I'd done effectively is I had replaced myself. And what I mean by that is I went into the marketing department and they were like, yeah, we've got it. Nothing to do. Went into the sales department. They were like, yep, got it. I went into each individual department and they went, yeah, we got it. We don't need you here. Everything's under control. Go home. And I went home and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So I switched on the Switch and I was playing on the Switch. I'm like, this doesn't feel right sitting here in the middle of the day. I have to keep busy. I don't like just sitting around doing nothing. I was like, this is just ridiculous. And I'd been creating magic ever since I was gone. It's not like I'd stopped creating magic, and I had files and files and files of stuff. And I just started looking through the files and starting creating. And then I had a phone call from Russ Brown saying, "Would you like to do the bear pit at Blackpool?" And I was like, "I haven't been to Blackpool for years." Yeah, okay then. And that was me kind of dipping my toe back into the community, thinking, well, I've got more free time now. And and I remember being at Blackpool and thinking this is really good. And then about a week after Blackpool, Sean Dunn from Penguin Magic contacted me and said, "Hey, do you want to release some stuff? Penguin would really like to work with you." And I was like, "I haven't released anything for years." "Yeah, go on then. I'll give it a go. Let's chat." And so I had that conversation. And just as all that was going on, the pandemic hit, and Ryland, as I said, was always into magic, but it just got insane before the pandemic. He was practicing all the time, and as I said, it was frustrating for him that he didn't get a chance to. He wasn't able to even leave the house. So that's when I was like, well, let's do a review show, and it was so well received that it made me want to put more content out. And I realized that at 45 years old, which is where I was when I started Magic TV, now I'm 46, I've done a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made more mistakes than most. I've made every mistake that you can make, but I've failed forward. And what I mean by that is experience is what you win when you lose. And I've lost a lot, so I've got a lot of experience. And I've, I do illusion shows, I do close-up, I do kid shows, I do every type of genre of magic, pickpocketing, everything. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of people that are getting into magic that don't know how to do things properly. There's a lot of courses out there, but there's a lot of money. And if I could put a YouTube channel together where I'm not really exposing tricks, because there's so many, that's a whole debate for another video. But if I could do a YouTube channel where I'm putting advice out there on how to perform, how to run a show, how to manage your pockets, how to market your business, how to do social media, how to do this, how to do that, how to do the other, I bet you somebody would find value in that. And the whole thing blew up more than I ever thought it would, and it became really popular. And you know as much about marketing as I do. I mean, the channel's doing something like 35,000 hours of watch time a month, which is pretty good for 35.
Very, very pretty good.
Yeah, when you consider they only got set up just over a year ago, and off the back of that, I had phone calls from everybody. It's like, "Hey, Murphys, would you come and work for us? Alakazam, would you come and work for us? D. Christopher, can you come and work for the 1914? Everybody, Andy, would you like to do a masterclass for Vanishing Ink? Well, yes, I think I would. And I've never gone out and sought out anybody. I've just had lots of people come to me, and I think it might be a combination of. It was weird because I went to Magic Live for Penguin. They had me on the booth and they flew me over there, and the same thing happened at Blackpool. And Josh actually pointed this out. Josh J pointed this out at Blackpool. I was just getting mobbed, like mobbed. Like I couldn't walk from one side of Blackpool to the other. I couldn't walk from one side of the Magic Live to the other. Like just people were stopping me and like, "Hey, can I have your autograph? Can I?" And I'm like, "Why would you want a selfie with me? I'm nobody. I'm just a guy that sits here shouting at a computer screen every day." But I don't know. I still, to this day, don't know why it is. I'm convinced that people realize that I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. At any moment now, they won't. I'm confident of it that they realize. But it's off the back of, and I think it's because I put so much content into Magic TV, and I don't ask anybody for anything in return. That everyone, the amount of people come up to me and go, "Oh, thank you for everything you're doing for the community, and thank you for this, and thank you for that," and I haven't had a plan this last year and a half. It's not like I've planned to sit here on the Vanishing Ink podcast, which is a big deal. I know I joked at the beginning, but it is a big deal. Filming a masterclass, which is a big deal. I've been a member of the masterclass program on Vanishing Ink since day one. And I have a bucket list, and right there on the bucket list is do a masterclass with Vanishing Ink. And I've never had a plan of how to do that. Everything has just been winging it. It's just, I've just had one opportunity after another opportunity after another opportunity, and it's led to something else and something else and something else. And it kind of, the catalyst of all of it really was just doing the YouTube channel. But I don't do the YouTube channel to go, right, okay, so now this company's going to work with me. This company's going to work with me. I don't reach out to any of them. I'm just putting these, I have ideas for videos. I'm like, oh, people might want to see that.
Do you think it's anything to do with how much you over deliver? Because you put an awful lot of stuff out on YouTube. Your tutorial videos for the products you release are in depth. And then on the forums, everybody that mentions a product, you're there. And you're like, blah, blah, blah. And even the trolls, you'll engage with the really obvious trolls, and you'll still go, well, yeah, you can have that opinion if you want, but I've been working this, and this is what I think. And every stage of what you do professionally now is giving more than probably you're being paid for, and more than people expect. Was that a deliberate decision? That over delivery?
And that came from reviewing products, because unfortunately, not everybody is a Murph, is a Vanishing Ink, or a Penguin Magic. And what I mean by that is, having reviewed products with Ryland now for so long, I can't tell you the amount of tricks that I review where it's a 4-minute tutorial on an unlisted video on YouTube, and no live performances, none this, no that, nothing. And I just hate it. I hate it, and it gets really frustrating because you see this really good idea and it's just completely lacking, and it feels a lot of the time like people release something and it's just half-assed. It's like, you know what, I've had this brain fart, I'm going to put it out because I want to be famous. And I think that happens an awful lot with new people that come into Magic. I think they see the Josh Jays, the Andy Gladwins, the Greg Wilsons, the Jay Sankeys. They see these people being held on pedestals. And I think they want that. And I think that they think, oh, I can be a creator without actually putting the time or the effort in, you know, without actually, like, you know, there's a lot to learn. The amount of people I meet at conventions are like, oh, I've created something. Well, no, you haven't. That was like published by this guy 5 years ago. No, I've made that mistake, but they haven't even looked. You know, they've just literally gone, you know, and I wanted to put... I didn't want to get burnt again. You brought up Red. Red was horrible. I royally buggered up with that. And it was one of the reasons that I left the community. And I had so much comeback on that. And I think part of the reason was I was the guy in the Wizard product review that was sitting there going... So when I made the same mistake, people were like, ha, right, got ya. And it was partially, I don't want to make that mistake again. So I spend hours reading through the Conjurer's Archive, reaching out to people, showing them anything that I'm working on, because I don't want to make that mistake again. There's that aspect of it. And if anything does happen, it's immediately dealt with. So I bought something out through Alakazam about 3 months ago, and there was 25 routines or something, and there was one routine that was similar to somebody else's, and he reached out to me, and I was like, great, okay, we're going to pull it off the project immediately. Done. Nobody will know there's still 24 tricks. It's fine. Because I wanted that. So A, it was about doing it the right way. But B, I don't see, you know as well as me in the industry, when I first got into Magic, it was L&L. It was multi-DVDs. It was like you got an L&L 3 DVD set, and it was amazing. I would spend days watching the performances, learning the tricks. And then what's happened is coming back to the industry. And you got to remember, while I was away, I didn't really buy much. So I came back to the industry, and the whole thing had changed in the last 7 or 8 years. And now it's all single tricks with lack of substance completely. There's very little substance. Not everybody. You know, Vanishing Ink are one of the companies that I believe are doing it right for the most part. But a lot of creators out there, there's a complete lack of substance. And I get why. I get that piracy is rife. And I get that having a physical product is better than not having a physical product, because then it's more difficult to pirate. I get that. I totally get that. But I think people are using it as an excuse, and they're bringing out these physical products, and they're just going, yeah, this is the idea, it's done. That it's so easy to now pitch an idea to a company. You know, Vanishing Ink will openly say, send us your video. So will Penguin. If you send a video around to every company, somebody is going to say yes. It's so easy to have an idea, and without trial and error, without working it in, like getting it out there, either self-published or through somebody else. And I wanted people to know that anything I've put my name to is worked in 100%. It's why the Quantum deck was 5 hours long. It's because I wanted people to know this isn't just a trick. There's 12 routines with this because you can't half-arse something and come up with multiple routines for it. It ain't going to happen. It's why all of my projects have got live performances. I did this thing called Trivia recently with Alakazam, and we had no live performance. And Pete was about to launch it. And I said, Pete, no, I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. I'm taking a camera with me. I'm getting you a live performance. I don't want any trick that's got my name on it going out without live performances. Even the Masterclass, where you don't expect live performances, I turned around to not Josh, obviously. I turned around to George on the day of filming, and I was like, right, okay, I'd like to film a live performance to somebody, Matt in my office or something. I want to film a live performance, and I'll send you those videos, and you can incorporate those into the masterclass. I want people to see this live, not just to camera. And I think that's so important. I think it's so important because it's so easy. I know that there's creators out there. I know there are. I've seen it. I've challenged them in person on this. They release a trick, and they don't even know how to perform it. They don't even know how to perform it. And you go up to a creator at Blackpool and you go, can you show me that trick? No. Well, why not? Here's a deck of cards. Show it me. And they're just releasing stuff. And without a live performance, it's just somebody to camera saying, trust me, this is how it's meant to look. Well, how am I supposed to know that? So, nobody would have, if I didn't have live performances on my masterclass, nobody would have said, well, this needed live performances, because you don't have live performances on a masterclass, or very rarely. But I wanted to be, I think there's 25 tricks on my masterclass or something, and I wanted live performances because I wanted to over deliver, and I want to put as much content out there so that people can see it's being worked in live in a real environment in a multiple different ways. You can see the live performances. You can see all the different routines. This has been well thought out. This is not a brain fart. Now, you might not like the trick. That's your opinion, and that's fine. Not everybody can like everything. There's tricks I've liked that other people have hated. There's tricks that other people have hated that I've liked. That's cool. However, I want you to at least know that I've put my heart and soul into it, and I've done everything that I can to get it to a point where I feel like I've given you value for whatever you've paid for that trick.
Yeah. And that shines through with everything. Let's say a kid comes up to you at Blackpool. He's 14, hasn't got a job, pocket money, saved it up, and he wants to buy one of your tricks. He's got the money for one of your tricks that you've released. What do you advise him to buy?
I think it very much comes down to the type of magic that he wants to perform. I think it comes down to what, like if it's a kid, if it's a 14-year-old kid, I would probably say something that doesn't feel like a magic trick. Because in all likelihood, a 14-year-old kid isn't probably going to be doing many professional gigs. So the environment in which a 14-year-old kid is performing is to his mates. Or, like at school or wherever. So with that in mind, I'd probably say something that doesn't feel like a magic prop. So not the quantum deck, because that's a trick. It's obviously a trick. It's a blank deck of cards. Not the Mirage coin set, because it's a special set of coins. You can tell. Something like Keymaster or Chop, I think. Because Keymaster is designed to be looking like keys that you have on your key fob. A kid would have keys so he can get into his house. Keymaster would probably be perfect. It feels impromptu, even though it's not. And also, Keymaster, you learn lots of moves, lots of switches. You learn how to do Spellbound. You learn how to do shuttle passes. You learn how to do vanishes. And that's really important, because I find that a lot of the kids that are out there, they not all of them, but a lot of them, they focus on card magic. I was at J-Day. I was a judge at J-Day in the close-up competition. I was lecturing at J-Day. Ryland was performing in the gala show. I was lecturing.
For Americans listening, J-Day is junior day for the Magic Circle in England.
Yeah. All of the young Magic Circle members, and they have a convention just for them. And I was lecturing, but I was also a judge in the close-up competition. 7 competitors, very talented. Not a single trick other than card tricks. All it was card tricks. That's it. And I think a lot of kids that get into magic these days, they gravitate towards card magic for a variety of different reasons, and we can talk about that and speculate as to why that is, but that is a fact. How many times do you see the kids at magic conventions and they're sitting there with a pack of cards? It just happens, and I think that you become a better magician all round if you learn the principles of coin magic and sleight of hand. I was speaking to Eric Jones about this a little while ago, and Eric said he would highly advise anybody to get into coin magic before card magic, because there's certain things that you learn as a coin magician that you can incorporate into your card magic that will make you a better card magician. And so I
Yeah.
think that probably a kid that's 14, and I'm kind of painting them into a sort of a box at this point, but I think they've probably got more than enough card tricks. And I think if they learn something like Keymaster or Chop, because also with Chop you're learning vanishes, you're learning switches,
Hmm.
and it's also seemingly impromptu. If you've got a Sharpie on you, you can borrow a cup, you can borrow a bill, you can do it, and you can do that. I think that learning those principles will make you a better magician all round, but also the magic that you can create using those items would be more impromptu than pulling out a deck of cards.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as this kid has bought Keymaster or Chop from you and is just about to leave, he says, "Oh, Mr. Petty, and could you give me just one piece of advice about magic? What's one thing that you would tell me as a 14-year-old child interested in magic?"
Make sure it's fun, because here's the thing: when you're 14, there's lots of other distractions. There's girls. There's going out with your mates. There's a million different things that can distract you from magic. Magic is an amazing hobby, and it can also be an amazing career. And I interview a lot of people, and the amount of people that say, "Oh, I was into it as a kid, and then I left, and I came back at the age of 20. They went to uni, they did their A levels, they got out of magic, and then they came back when they got a bit older for whatever reason." And that seems to happen over and over again. And I think if you are 14 and you're obsessed with magic, or you're 13 or you're 12, this is advice I give to Ryland all the time. Ryland is obsessed with my son Ryland. He is obsessed with magic, and he could do magic 24/7 if I let him. But he's got a lot of other interests. He plays computer games. He plays the drums. He takes karate lessons. He's in the school team in football, and it's really important for him not to just do magic, because the problem is if you immerse yourself in it completely 100%, it becomes a chore. You start to practice not because you want to, because you feel you have to. You look at the stuff that you've bought and you're like, right, okay, I have to practice this stuff. I have to get better at this stuff, else it was a waste of money. When you go down that route, it becomes a slippery slope, because when you go down that route, you start to resent the actual tricks themselves. And that's when you look for something from somewhere else. And that's when you'll eventually leave magic, because it stopped being fun. The way to
Yeah.
continue to love it, and the way to continue to make it eventually a career or something that you do through your whole life, is make sure it's fun. If you're doing magic and you're sitting there and you haven't practiced for a few days, and don't sit there going, "Oh, I need to practice." Don't beat yourself up over that. If you haven't practiced for a week, that's not a problem. If you don't feel like going out and performing, that's not a problem. It's a hobby at the end of the day, and it should be fun. And I see so many people, it becomes not fun, and it becomes a chore, and it becomes something that they feel they have to do. And that's ultimately the start of a slope that's going to enter them leaving. And that would be a shame, because that kid could be the next Shin Lim. That kid could be the next Joshua J. And we're not going to ever know, because they've burnt themselves out when they could have just taken a step back and made it more fun for themselves.
Solid. Craig, if you had a time machine and could go back in magic history and see any performer who's no longer with us, who would you choose to see and why?
Well, you've currently caught me at the right time to answer that. It'd be Di Vernon. And the reason it'd be Di Vernon is because currently, and for the last month, I've been trying to learn the ball and the cone.
Uh huh.
And I suck at it. I suck at it. I've been, honestly, I do it so badly. Every night I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to steal the ball. And I say to Ryan, "How does it look?" And he's like, "Terrible." "How's it look?" "Terrible." I video it. I'm like, "No, you're wrong. Let me video it." "Oh, it looks terrible." I like to be able to go back and actually see. I'd like to sit down with Di Vernon and get a lesson on how to actually, how to actually do the ball and the cone and not suck at it, because I've watched videos of him doing it. I've read revelations. I've watched other videos of other people doing it. And it always looks so elegant. And I've got this beautiful cone that I spend like 200 quid for. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to really make something of this, and it's going to be a feature. And honestly, the other day I took the cone and I threw it against the wall. I'm like, this is terrible. So at the moment, it would definitely be Di
So he
Vernon,
can teach you.
I've never. I want to learn how to do this. I need personal instruction, right? At this point, to be honest, that's the truth, because I don't know what to do.
Talking.
If it wasn't Vernon, it'd be go back and speak to Siegfried and Roy when in their prime. I'd love to see them in their prime. Never did. I'd love to sit down and chat to them in their prime, because I do an illusion show. I love illusion shows. I love illusions, and to speak to those guys about their thoughts on it would be amazing. So
Now, you mentioned, I'm gonna shoehorn a segue in. You ready? You mentioned personal tuition from Di Vernon. Then, talking of personal tuition, you're going to be doing some next month for Vanishing Ink Masterclass. Good day.
God, and this is why you're the marketing
I
guy.
know, right?
Vanishing Ink.
I
That's the
know.
most beautiful segue.
What are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to about it?
Well, you know what? I remember speaking to Andy about this when he asked me to be to do a Vanishing Ink masterclass, and I thought he was taking the piss. To be honest, I was like, "Are you serious?" Because I don't think of myself as Vanishing Ink material, just in terms of everybody who's on Vanishing Ink. They're always so elegant and refined, and it's just they could speak for hours about theory, and I'm like, I don't really do that. I've got tricks and I shout, and that's it. That's what I bring to the table. I got tricks and I shout. They're good tricks and I shout loud, but I'm never going to win in a theory battle with Homer Leewag. And that's who I'm following. To be clear here, it's like Homer Leewag and then me. It's like and then after that it's it's Morgan and West. I mean, it's like you remember at high school when the so girls hung out with the ugly girls to make them look better. That's where I am right now. I'm the ugly kid. And I'm sure that I've been sandwiched to make them look better. I don't know. I've got so much I think that genuinely Andy Gladwin and Josh J were sitting around and they were like, "Here's an idea. We'll take the piss. Let's get Craig to do a masterclass." I don't know, but it was like really just like, "Are you serious?"
I'm crying.
I said to him like 5 times, "Are you serious? Really? Are you sure?" You do realise you haven't dialed David Regal, right? You do realise I'm not David Regal. Greg Wilson, I can give you his number if you'd like to, but so imposter syndrome, I have big time imposter syndrome with this thing. And I remember saying to Andy when he finally convinced me he wasn't talking rubbish and it was actually a thing, I said to him, I'd like to over deliver. That's what I'd like to do. I would massively like to over deliver. And I said, so you normally do two pre-recorded masterclasses, and then you do a Q&A, right?
Yep.
And they were like, yeah. I was like, what month are we doing it? And Andy said December. I was like, right, let's do 3. And it was like, what? I was like, yeah, let's do 3. Let's do 3 masterclasses and then the Q&A. So we'll do 4. It's Christmas. We'll give them an extra gift. He's like, okay. And all right. I think he thought I was joking, but I wasn't. And then I said, okay. And I remember George sending me, and if you've not done a masterclass, you won't know this. This is so Vanishing Ink. I mean, I've worked with pretty much every company at this point, and each one is totally different, right? So, yeah, when I work with Murphy's, I'm just turning up with Lloyd's broken ring light, and we're just winging it, right, in a pub. When I'm working with all the different companies, I knew it was going to be a completely different experience when I saw my PDF, which was the key to a successful masterclass. And I'm like, my God, like the 10 commandments of how to run a successful masterclass. I was like, oh my God. Every other company I've worked for, they just want me to turn up and do my best. And like, this is like 10 commandments. I'm like, my God, I better read this. And and then, I turned up and as I say, every other company, it's like, oh, we're going to stick you in this room over here. It was like it was a studio. It was white. None of my trailers ever. I watched the Masterclass trailer the other day. None of my trailers are in like a studio. They're normally just me in a pub or something. It's like I feel like a Hollywood star with this, you know. And the studio was in like this 5-star hotel. There was a freaking doorman on the door, like with a hat and everything. I was like, yeah, this is so Vanishing Ink. It really is. It's just a Vanishing Ink vibe. And I said to George, I was like, right, so I'm going to, I really took that PDF seriously, the 10 Commandments. I took it so seriously. I read it to the letter, and it said, it should be original material that you've not really done anywhere. I was like, okay, right, no problem. So I created brand new material specifically just for this. I think there's 2 tricks that are like 5 years old. Or 10 years old or something that I haven't seen the light of day in a long time. But it's pretty much all new material that people haven't seen before. And I've included on there a trick which is going to be released with another company at some point in 2023. And I actually teach it on the Masterclass, and I teach you how to make it. And which hopefully they'll not find out about, because they'll probably be angry at me. But I'll worry about that another time. So I put all original material together, and the thing I'm passionate about when I'm creating is taking stuff that people do exactly the same way and trying to put a spin on it. So the perfect example is I put out a project called Visible, which was all in the invisible deck. And the whole idea behind it was, this is the invisible deck. Pretty much everybody does it the same way. That's why it's called the invisible deck, not the ultra mental deck, because everyone does it exactly the same way. I'd like to point out, and Josh had this idea as well, obviously, because Vanishing Ink have got their own version of that as well. And I was like, I'm going to put a project out with like 15 routines with an invisible deck and go in a completely different direction. That's what I like to do. Showing people that stuff that you've maybe dismissed and you put in your bottom drawer, or stuff that you do and everyone does it the same way, you can breathe new life into that. Because the only way to stand out in a crowded marketplace of magicians is by doing something different. If you do the trick the same way as everyone else, what's going to happen is you're just going to be a clone of everyone else. Socks is one of my favorite tricks of all time. I love Socks, and I love Michelle. He's amazing. And I think it's one of the Vanishing Ink's best tricks. I just think it's amazing. It's perfect. But I do it very, very differently to anyone else, because I wanted to stamp my own personality onto it. So that's what I was trying to do with the Masterclass. So the first one, I believe, is on Gaffed decks, and it's taking, or the second one. So the first one's on Gaffed cards.
First one's card stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so you're taking Gaffed cards. Now, I've got a project coming out at some point in 2023, 2024 on Gaffed cards. And different routines, but that's completely different material to this. I wanted, because here's the thing, everybody has those cards, don't they? Everybody has those double backers and those double facers and those blank cards. And what we do is we buy them because when we get into Magic, we're like, oh, that sounds cool. And then we take them home. And unless we read a book and there's a particular use for a double backer, or unless we watch a download, we don't do anything with them. They sit in our drawer and we don't do anything with them. And the first Masterclass was, well, let's take these cards and show you some stuff that you can do with them, because there's a lot you can do with these. And this is how I would use them if I were you. And there's some amazing material on there. I've got my favorite ace production is on there. A self-working way of cutting to the 4 aces is on there. There's some awesome routines with blank cards and just everything. So that's the first one. You can talk more about that if you want to. Then the second one is on Gaff decks, because I'm a big fan of Gaff decks. And I go through some ideas with Gaff decks that, people haven't necessarily thought of before. We look at the invisible deck, we look at the Mirage deck. For me, the Mirage deck is the most underutilized pack of cards in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody just does it for exactly the same thing. All they do is they just force a card with it, and that's it. And there's so much more you can do with it. So I go through a couple of different ways that you can use a Mirage deck. I go through a couple of different things that you can do with an invisible deck that's different to what I actually put on Visible, extra routines. Then I go through this thing called Stick Pack, which was my closer in restaurants for years, which is just like the weirdest color changing deck you ever see, but with stickmen. I go through a lottery prediction, which is just incredible, and that's the one that I'm going to get in trouble over. So nobody tell any other companies that I put that on the Masterclass. Hopefully they won't watch it. If they don't know, it won't hurt them. And a bunch of other stuff, but it's all stuff with Gaff decks. And then the final one is just an eclectic range of magic. So first of all, I go through some uses of the WoW gimmick because, again, for me, the WoW is exactly the same as the Gaff decks and the Gaff cards. Everybody bought to WoW and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Look, I can change one card into another. And then what they did is they did that for a while. They might have posted a video on social media once, and then they put it in their bottom drawer where it has lurked ever since. And I've got a ton of stuff that I do with the WoW gimmick. I've got about 20 different routines. So we start off with a few different things like that, including visible vanishes of corners and signature transpositions and a whole bunch of different ideas. Then I put some coin magic on there because that's my thing. And I was realizing that I hadn't put any coin magic. So I put for the first time ever, never published this before, I put on the routine that I use to get into Triple C. Charming Chinese Challenge, Choi Hooser's trick, for me, is the perfect coin trick. It is the perfect coin trick. I remember reading that in Destroyers and just immediately knowing that this is a trick that will be in my repertoire until the day that I die. And I have probably about 10 different standalone sets that I bought from Vanishing Ink because I never want to be without it. And I just love it. And I have a routine, which is a production of $3 and then they jump from one hand to another. Then they change into Chinese coins, then back into the $, then back into Chinese coins, all using sleight of hand, no gimmicks at all. And then I'm left with 3 Chinese coins, and I get a ribbon, and it's my opening routine. It's called Triple C Wild Coin. So I published that. I put that on the thing. And the other thing I put on there is how I made my name in this industry. The first trick I ever put out, or the first product I ever put out, was called Flipped Out, and it was all routines with a flipper coin. And it was a great DVD. I'm still proud of it now, other than the fact that it was shot by, I can only assume, was an idiot. It was just the worst shot ever. The guy that World Magic Shop hired to film it was more concerned with having me running around in fields for the trailer than he was actually doing a multi-camera shoot to try and get the material. So you couldn't really tell what was going on. And there was a routine on there called Empowerment. And I was one of the first people to use the flipper coin. It was me and Troy and Dean. There was the 3 of us at the beginning that were putting stuff out. And the standalone trick for me is Empowerment. I lectured on it recently at the Magic Circle. And when I went and lectured on it at the Magic Circle, I got a standing ovation. And
that's rare. The magic, just for Americans listening, the magic, when you lecture at the Magic Circle, people sit here like this. Sorry, audio listeners, I'm sitting with my arms crossed, looking nonplussed. That's how people respond at lectures at the Magic Circle. So to get a standing ovation is remarkable. Please carry on.
Yeah, and everyone afterwards was saying, "Oh my gosh, that's the best lecture I've ever seen." And I just put a lot of the stuff that's in the masterclass was in that lecture actually. But I lectured on Empowerment, which is my flipper coin routine, where the spectator does the vanish of the coins. Each one of the 4 coins, they vanish the coins and they make the coins appear. You do nothing, hence the term empowerment. You're empowering the spectator to do the trick, and it's probably the best thing I did. And I put that on the masterclass. And so, because I wanted people to see how it was done properly and so on and so forth. So that's on there. And a bunch of other stuff as well. I think there's even an elastic band on trick on there. I think there's a trick with a friction pen on there. It was an eclectic range of material. So I think there's like coming up on 30 routines across the 3 projects. Because here's the thing. I've been a Vanishing Ink Masterclass customer since day one. I could probably buy a home with the amount of money I've probably paid for Josh Nandy's home at some point, at least twice the amount of money I spend at Vanishing Ink. And some of the masterclass, all of the masterclasses are good. I can't think of one that wasn't good. They're all good in one way or another, but a lot of them are theory heavy, and some of them. I think that maybe it's because they've got 2 to film or something, especially the early ones where it was live. I think it could have been a bit more succinct with the explanations. Yeah. I think we could have had a few more tricks.
Says the man that does 8-hour downloads, complaining that things aren't succinct enough.
Yeah. I changed it with Vanishing Ink. So I wanted, George was there with the timer, and he was like, right,
next trick.
Yeah, and I wanted to just put as many. I didn't want theory on there. I didn't want it to be theory. Not that there's anything wrong with theory. I'll have a discussion on theory with the best person. Absolutely. And there is a time and a place for theory. But this is December. We want tricks. So I just wanted to pack that thing out because the problem with theory is there's always somebody that's going to disagree.
Mhm.
But every magician wants to learn tricks at
Yeah.
their heart. That's what they want to learn. So I just like, I'm going to pack as many tricks into this masterclass as I can, as many different types of tricks. I'm just going to shove a load of them in, all routines that I've worked in the real world, all routines that are worked in. I've ironed all the kinks out. It's going to be like a machine gun. It's going to be trick, 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 trick. Then next week, trick, 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 trick. And that's what I wanted to achieve. And I think that's what we've managed to do. So yeah, you're getting 4 masterclasses. You're getting 3 instead of 2. Then you're getting the live Q&A, where I'm also planning on teaching more tricks because it's not enough 3. So I'm going to be teaching more tricks, and yeah, that's what it's all about. It's just tricks, tricks, tricks over 4 masterclasses. And if you like the type of magic that I do, I think people are going to love it.
Well, we have kind of buried the lead with the discussion about this because Masterclass normally is a subscription service that's part of Vanishing Inc. monthly. So you get all of the masterclasses, you then get access to Vanishing Inc. Studio, our streaming service with exclusive, you can't even buy it videos on there, and you get free shipping with no minimum orders. And that runs people $50, £50 a month. It's Christmas. It's the holidays. It's the time of giving. So you very nicely have agreed to let people try this for not $50, not $25, but how much, Craig?
$1.
$1. Now, if we
$1.
were to
One
work
pound.
out,
$1.
I can't remember how many tricks are on it, but it's quite a lot, isn't it? Let's say it's a lot
coming
of
up on 30.
30 tricks for £1. Now, to be totally clear and transparent with everybody watching or listening, this is a trial subscription. So you go along to vanishinginc.magic.com/masterclass and take out the trial. What will happen is at the end of December, unless you cancel, that will renew at full price. But for the whole of December, you can enjoy all 4 of the sessions with Craig, including the live Q&A, including Vanishing Inc. Studio, including the free shipping, for $1/£1. And then just before the end of December, we'll send you a little email saying, we hope you're enjoying it. Morgan and West are coming up next month. Your credit card will be billed unless you cancel. And we give people the instructions on how to cancel. Now that's transparent, isn't it, Craig? That's fair.
Very transparent. And I'm just wondering if Josh has suffered some sort of emotional mental breakdown because
I haven't told
from a
him.
business point of view, oh, you haven't told him. Right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because frankly, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Completely and totally and utterly nuts. Because you don't have to do this. I've spoken to a ton of people that are like, oh, I'm going to get your masterclass. I'm going to get your masterclass. You don't have to do this. You've got a load of people that subscribe every month. You've got a load of people that will happily buy every masterclass. I've got a lot of people that will buy the stuff that I do regardless, even if they're not a member of the masterclass. You don't have to do this, and you have, and it's insane. It's partially insane, but also partially shows the type of people that we have here at Vanishing Inc. You guys are good guys, and it shines through with a lot of the content that you put out, and with the session when you had the incentive with the kids, and you got the kids along for free, and everything that Vanishing Inc. does, you can tell that yes, it's a business. So they're there to make money. I mean, if they aren't making money, there's no business, and therefore there's no Vanishing Inc. and there's no jobs. However, beyond being a business, it's a labour of love, and you just can see, not just with Josh and Andy, but with everybody who works there, and everybody I've ever interacted with that works with Vanishing Inc., I can just tell that they're as concerned with bettering magic, and they're as concerned with making sure that it's accessible for all than they are about the business. And that's why I really like you guys, because of that transparency and that obvious love of the art, and it's amazing to see. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
One of our core drivers is that we want to improve the craft of magic, and that's why we let people come to Magi Fest, and under 18s come to Magi Fest in the session for free. And that's why we do what we do. We genuinely do want to improve the art of magic, whilst, of course, as you so rightly point out, running a business and employing the number of people that we do and paying my mortgage and all of that stuff. But we do want to do it. So we want as many people as possible to have the masterclass experience, to learn this new material that you're going to be teaching, and to see what all the fuss is about. And if it's not for them, come the end of December, in their account area, one click, cancel, done. See you later. Thanks for trying it. Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed learning Craig's tricks. And all of those downloads, all of the masterclass sessions, they'll keep forever. We're not going to take them as away. They can download them. They'll stay in their account. They're not going to go away. They have all of that for $1/pound. And yeah, we just want as many people as possible to try it. And what better person to do that with than you? So, Craig,
Genuinely, each one of these tricks, I'll say one thing. Each one of these tricks that I've got on my masterclass could be a download. At least 2 of them are physical products coming out at some point. If you add up the amount that you could charge as a download for each individual trick, stroke physical products, you probably have, oh my God, about 700 or 800, if not more, pounds, dollars worth of material that you're getting for $1. This is insane.
Craig Petty, we're out of time. We always finish the show with 4 quick-fire questions. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Favourite pizza topping?
Got to be a barbecue and chicken. Anything that involves chicken and barbecue, I'm in.
Favourite movie?
Would have to be the original Karate Kid.
Favourite person or people who make music?
Personal people that make music. Tenacious D. Or Bare Naked Ladies.
Okay. And finally, who would you rather fight? 1 massive Andy or 100 tiny Joshes?
100 tiny Joshes, because he's incredibly nice, and I think I could talk him out of fighting me, and I think we'd just end up and having a massive session. I think I could reason with the 100 tiny Joshes, whilst I don't know if I could reason with Andy. I think he's got a dark side. I'm not sure. I think he's got a dark side. He hides really well.
Craig Petty, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time this morning. I do appreciate it. And just to remind everybody, go along to vanishinginkmagic.com. You will see a banner where it says try Masterclass for $1 and enjoy all 3 lectures plus the live Q&A with Mr. Craig Petty every Sunday this December. Craig, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Damien. And I'll see you guys in Vanishing Ink throughout December.